we're in Revelation 17, verse 7. And the angel says to me, why did you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her. Okay, so there's a woman, and she is on the back of a beast, and there's a mystery. Remember, but mystery means unrevealed truth, right? I've taught you that before. This is not Scooby-Doo's Mystery Machine, like a whodunit. It's an unrevealed truth. Although a whodunit has an unrevealed truth at the end, right? They always pull the mask off of the guy, and it's the mean old guy from the farm or whatever. They would catch him, and it says, I will tell you. So now we have a beast that carries her. Okay, so the beast, it seems that this beast is the same beast that we saw in Revelation 13:1, who is the Antichrist. Okay, so but now he's going to introduce somebody new. Now remember, we know Satan, that's the dragon, right? We've seen the dragon in Revelation, and we've seen the beast, that's the Antichrist. Now we're going to get somebody new. Now, we've already seen this person earlier, but he's now going to have a different vision, like a different metaphor, okay? This is going to be the false prophet, the leader of the one world church. And we'd seen this person before because they'd done miracles and guided everybody to worship the beast, that the beast has a head wound and he's raised to life, or he doesn't die. And the false prophet, well, this is another image of the false prophet system, this woman. My understanding is this is a religious system that is going to direct everybody to worship Satan, to worship the Antichrist. Okay? So it says he carries her, and he has 7 heads and 10 horns. We'll talk about that in a second. The beast that you saw was and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. So the beast is indwelt by Satan, the Antichrist. He comes out of the bottomless pit, but eventually, this is like the trailer to the movie. He's going to be locked in the bottomless pit in Revelation chapter 19. We're going to see that after the Battle of Armageddon. So it's kind of, the trailer is right here. Here's who he was and where he came from and where he's going. So don't worry, I'm in control. He's going to look really bad at first, but I'm in control. He will go to perdition, and those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. Okay, so the people that will marvel are the unsaved, right? They're not written in the book of life. These are unsaved people. They're going to marvel at his power, and then marvel at what happens to him. They will see the beast that was and is not and yet is. So in my notes, I said, understand the woman is a religious system and the beast is the Antichrist. If you're in my notes, I'm there in verses 7 and 8, if you're following along. It is the perfect symbol of the church-state relationship that Baptists have fought against for centuries. I mean, when I talk about we're in a parenthesis of world history where there's separation of church and state, and the state doesn't persecute Christians, too much. We were talking in deacons meeting. Paul was talking about, who was it? Was it your uncle or your grandfather? Father? Adriana's uncle. That's right. And he received Christian literature, and the Romanian secret police under Ceausescu put him on a watch list of evil bad guys. And we were talking about Solomon and how the Hindu government is not letting us have. When I used to go there 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I preached to 10,000 Indians under a huge tent, and there would be 100,000 people. They would set up speakers in the village, and I would be preaching at night, every night, to 100 to 150,000 people. Can you imagine preaching to 150,000 and all but a few of those are lost? And I got to preach the gospel night after night after night. They can't do that anymore. If you go there as a pastor, a Christian pastor from America, you can't sit on the platform, you can't speak. You can do training to small groups. I can go there and I can train 120 pastors for a whole week, and I can work with them, but I can't do citywide evangelistic meetings anymore because you have a Hindu nationalist government. They're capitalistic, but they're Hindu nationalists. In India, for the Christians, it's better to vote for the socialists than it is to vote for the capitalists.
When did that change?
Modi's been in power for 10, 15 years. Yep. Modi, yeah. Modi's a very, very evil man when it comes to faith. We would say, oh, he's capitalist, that's great. But when it comes to Christians, he's more than happy to persecute Christians. Yep. Okay, so what I say here in my notes, it is why our Baptist forefathers I missed the D there, our founders to have the first 15 words in the Bill of Rights be about the separation of church and state. Obviously, that phrase is not in the Bill of Rights. It says there's no establishment and we have free exercise. That means we can do it. The phrase separation of church and state, the Danbury Baptists of Danbury, Connecticut, wrote President Jefferson in 1803, I believe, a letter and asked about what is the relationship of the church and the state. And Jefferson wrote them back and said, we have created a wall of separation between religion and the state. That's where you get separation, the wall of separation. It's not in the Constitution. So always remind people that this is not a constitutional phraseology. It's Jefferson writing to Baptists and putting it in his own words, okay? But religious freedom, free exercise, and the establishment of a state church. This is going to be the ultimate established state church. It's going to be a satanic established state church. But when you stop and think about, okay, the King of England, we just remembered a few days ago the strangulation and burning of William Tyndale at the behest of the King of England, Protestant King of England, by the way, because, and Tyndale's last words are, open the eyes of the King of England, before he's murdered in Antwerp, Belgium. God answered that prayer because within 20 years, basically Tyndale's translation becomes the bishop's Bible. 96 or 97% of the words sit on every church under the authorization of the next King of England, and it's the bishop's Bible and it's Tyndale's translation. But fast forward another 75 years when you get the King James Version. Our Bible today, if you read a King James Version, about 80% of the words in that version are Tyndale's words. Tyndale may be the best, most widely read author in the history of the world. But that's an example of what a state church tyranny does, even with the best of intentions. This was a Protestant king, right? Open the King of England's eyes. So we don't want a state church. This will be the ultimate state church. The prediction here is the Antichrist will go to hell eventually, but at this time of the tribulation will appear all-powerful. This may be only a couple of months before the end of the tribulation. We may be within weeks at this point of the Battle of Armageddon. Okay? We already saw back in Revelation 13:13 that the religious leader has healed a mortal wound to the Antichrist. Remember we talked about that weeks ago in Revelation 13. So the world follows this miracle worker just as Pharaoh followed his false magicians in the confrontation with Moses. Remember, the false magicians threw their staffs on the ground, they became snakes, remember? I mean, Satan can do miracles. Satan has power. He's just not all powerful. He's not all powerful because greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world, right? Amen. Amen. So the beast upon which the harlot rides has 7 heads and 10 horns. We will talk about that next. So get the visual. Here is this beast, and here you have this harlot. So how many times in the Old Testament did God talk to Israel about being spiritual adultery? Remember? With Baal, with Ashtaroth, with all the false gods, right? And he talked about, and he said, you've harloted yourselves. You've played the harlot. I mean, over and over again, God tells the Jewish people that they have played the harlot, right? So it's only fitting that the end of the age, the ultimate harlot, will be the false prophet in this one world church. You see it already on cars, don't you? Have you ever seen the Coexist bumper sticker? Everybody gets to coexist except a Bible-based Christian. Everybody got to coexist in Israel except Elijah, right? Everybody got to coexist except John the Baptist. The Pharisees, the Sadducees in Rome, they all got to coexist except John the Baptist didn't. cut off his head. Everybody gets to coexist, except those who speak truth. Everybody does. Okay? So let's look at verses 9 to 13. Do you need the sheet? You got one? Okay, I figured you did, but I just didn't want you to miss out on this scintillating study. I mean, Spurgeon is weeping right now. You know, I'm joking. I hope you know I'm joking. So verse 9. Here is the mind which has wisdom. Okay, wisdom. Interpretation. This is why when my amillennial friends say that Revelation there's no future, or my postmillennial friends say everything in Revelation happened before 70 AD. It's all in the past. Then why in the world is God saying, well, let's see some wisdom? Well, if it's all in the past, why does it matter? Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. Now, there's different interpretations on what the 7 mountains are by good scholars. But if you were just a normal person in one of these 7 churches of Asia Minor, Smyrna, or Ephesus, and John is writing to you about 90 during persecution, the first worldwide persecution, and he says 7 mountains. What city comes to your mind? If you're in the Roman Empire. Now, different people say, no, it's symbol. It's the number of perfection with a perfect evil system. I mean, I've read different things, and I have some good commentators that I really respect on everything else, but disagree with here. I mean, I try to put myself in the shoes, well, sandals, of the first people that hear it. And when John says 7 mountains, and he's being persecuted on the island of Patmos on the Lord's Day, what do you think? I mean, his churches of Asia Minor, where he's been the pastor in Ephesus for years and years and years, and he's writing to they're one of the churches. Who do you think they're going to think? They're going to think Rome. Could that be a wrong interpretation? Absolutely. Like I said, there's really good people that take a different interpretation on this, but I think it's Rome. So he says the 7 mountains on which the woman sits. So this is where we get the idea that the Antichrist will be a part of a revived Roman Empire. Remember back in Daniel, remember that image? And the toes were a mix of clay and brass. Remember, it starts with the gold at the top and it kind of works its way down to being less and less precious. So the idea is that the feet haven't existed yet. The Roman Empire fell apart. The West in 476, the East in 1453, one to the barbarians, the other to the Muslims, and it fell apart. But it really, do you understand that the reason we have miles today, mile markers, that's Roman. Do you know the reason that our railroads are so far apart is from Roman chariots, our railroads, because they were ruts in roads. Literally almost everything we do and say has a Roman background here in the West. It really does. So while it was defeated, it really never went away. Charlemagne tried to redo the Roman Empire. You have Charles V, hundreds of years later, the Holy Roman Empire. It was neither Holy Roman nor an empire. It's like grape nuts, right? Neither grape nor nuts. That's a quote from Voltaire, not on grape nuts, but about the Holy Roman Empire, okay? Napoleon, what did Napoleon try to do? What did Hitler try to do? What did Mussolini try to do? Everybody's tried to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. It seems from Daniel's look at future kingdoms, and you see 7 hills, that why I believe the Antichrist arises from the West and is a Western leader. It comes out of those suppositions. Other people have said it's Islam. Yeah, could be. You just have to make the 7 hills into something else other than literal. Okay? So, there's 7 mountains, of which the woman sits. There are 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other is yet to come. I'm going to talk about that in a second, okay? And when he comes, he must continue a short time. The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th and is of the 7 and is going to perdition. You go, what? What? Okay, let's talk about that. Verse in my notes, okay? As mentioned before, the city of Babylon was founded by Nimrod. Remember that? Genesis 10, 8 to 11. The word Babel means the gate of God. This city's name was literally an idolatrous attempt to deify God. To defy God, not deify God, to defy God. This was a city that became to be metaphorically the original anti-God city, Babylon. So all through the centuries, Babylon has been synonymous with cities that defy God, a Babylonish system. The Babylonish system has a virgin with a small baby. All through the ancient world, there was worshiping a virgin with a small baby, long before Christ was born. Okay? That comes out of Babylon. We saw in verse 5 that she was the mother of harlots. In other words, this Babylonish system of man first has been copied by every false religion since then, as they all reject salvation by faith alone and place religious activity as man's effort to reach God through his own power. The angel tells John that there is symbolism here. The 7 mountains likely symbolize the city of Rome, although some good theologians believe that they are for rulers, 7 rulers. It seems verse 18 identifies this woman pretty clearly, though. John's readers would not be shocked at Rome being called a spiritual harlot, and God had even called Jerusalem a harlot in Isaiah 121. So calling a city a harlot or a manifestation of a religious system that emanates out of that city, God had done that in Isaiah when he talked about Jerusalem. He had used the same terminology on Tyre and Nineveh as well in Isaiah 23, 16 to 17 and Nahum 3, 4. Both scarlet and purple were rich and kingly colors that were associated with Rome in the 1st century. The beast has 7 heads, which can be both 7 mountains and 7 kingdoms. If the heads are also 7 kingdoms, with 5 being passed, the ones being passed would be Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, and Greece. These would correspond with Daniel's image and other prophecies of the kingdom in that book. We covered those. I just did it to you quickly here, but we covered those a long time ago when we did Daniel. Okay? So the present kingdom would be Rome, and the coming kingdom would be of the beast or Antichrist, of which John is writing. The 10 horns represent 10 kings who help the beast. Remember in Revelation 6:1, the Antichrist comes as a man of peace. Remember Revelation? There's this guy on a horse, on a white horse, and he's got an arrow. And remember, everybody goes, oh, that must be Jesus. No. That's anti-Jesus. Because he's going to come and be a man of peace. How do you think he's going to get the Jews to lay down all their weapons? Do you see the Jews anytime in the near future laying down all their weapons? No. This guy is going to be able to convince the Jews, because the Old Testament says they will be living in unwalled villages in that day. In other words, no defense. They will completely buy into this man of peace. So this Antichrist, we see him in Revelation 6:1, he's a man of peace. The violent beast of Revelation 13:1 is at halfway mark when he rips up the covenant with Israel. Of course, he will look peaceful, but then in the middle of the tribulation, he will break his covenant of peace with Israel. I had a peach this morning, and so, I have to be a covenant of peach. Daniel 9:27, that's where it says he breaks the covenant in the middle. In this way, the beast is one of the 7 and also the 8th. Get it? The 7th is he comes as a man of peace, and then the 8th is when he becomes a man of war. It corresponds perfectly with Daniel 9:27. It corresponds perfectly with Daniel 9:27. He's a man of peace, but becomes so that he's the 7th and he's also then the 8th. Does that make sense? Are you tracking with me? Okay? His kingdom is a revival of the Roman Empire, one of the seven, but it was also a completely new world kingdom, making it the eighth. So it's the seventh when he starts. But by the middle of the tribulation, he rips up the peace treaty and he says, I'm God. And he declares war on all believers and to eradicate the Jews so there can be no millennium. Just like Herod tried to eradicate Jesus. Just like Haman tried to eradicate the Jews. Just like Pharaoh tried to kill all the Jew babies. Just like Hitler tried to eradicate the Jews. Do you see a train of thought here going kill the Jews? Because Satan knows God has made promise to the Jewish people. That doesn't mean they're believers today. And in fact, many Jewish believers who live in the land, the Israel of God that Paul writes about in Galatians. Israel of God is not the church. That's what our amillennialist friends want us to believe. They want you to believe that the church has replaced Israel. The Israel of God that Paul talks about in Galatians 6 is believing Jews. So when I go to Israel and we have a Messianic Jewish guide, he or she, they're the Israel of God that's mentioned in Galatians chapter 6. They're the Israel of God because they're walking in faith in their Messiah. So, he's one of the seven, but was a new world kingdom, making it the eighth. Okay, we're almost out of time. I'll stop right there. I had to get to that point because it's a section. We'll get to verse 14 where he says, these will make war with the Lamb. Trailer to the movie, Revelation 19, the Battle of Armageddon. We're getting close. We're getting close. Coming attractions next week. Don't miss it. He says that they will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called chosen and faithful. We are with him at that battle. Can you imagine how excited these persecuted churches of Asia Minor, of modern-day Turkey are, Smyrna, Ephesus, Laodicea are, when they read that there's going to be this future general that will be far worse than anything that they're going through now, and yet the Lamb will win. How great is that? The Lamb wins. The Lamb wins. The Lamb wins.